Transmitting to you from Old Heart Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's right. This is another episode of Coffee and Contemplation. I happen to be your host, Old Heart. Or you can fucking call me Jared. I don't really care. It's up to you. Get out of my hair about it, okay? Long hair, don't care. Either way, hope you're having a decent day wherever you're at in it. Today is a good day to ripen up your coconut just like every day. So here we are, sitting down, listening to me ramble on about, well, today's topic. Do you know what it is? Probably not, and that's all right. Hey, Mr. T's in the house, or maybe he's only once or twice in the house. Either way, I hope you're having a good day. Like I said, thanks for being here, dear listener, and here we are. I know. I deserve all the applause, always. Always give me applause. Anytime I walk in a room, I want people to softly golf clap for me. Why? Because here I am amazing. Whatever, we're not talking about me. Today we are talking about protests. And I don't know if you've ever been a part of a protest, but protesting is damn important. If you don't think protesting is important, then, you know, I hope you fall down a well. Shoutouts to an old friend of mine, Scott Weiss. Not about falling down a well. Just shoutouts for giving me the greatest insult in the world. Either way, protesting is a part of democracy, people. Protesting is a part of being an active citizen. It's a part of being involved in your surroundings and your community and your city, state, country, whatever you want to fucking say. It is a duty that we take on without even realizing it. If you don't think it's important to protest, that's fine, but you're probably wrong. I also think that if you don't have at least one thing that you would raise your voice for, like one cause that you would raise your voice for, you're a little too selfish. Either way, right now, across the globe, there are so many protests happening that I just wanted to touch on them. They're obviously in one of the most important ones. I can't say that. That's putting them all on different levels, and they're not on different levels. All these things happen for different reasons, and you and I don't fully understand them if we are not present and part of them. But one of them is going on in Hong Kong. It's been going on. There's a protest in Hong Kong that's been going on since June. They originally started protesting an extradition bill that would allow citizens of Hong Kong to be extradited to mainland China for, whatever reason. And that's not cool. But subsequently, there have been hundreds of thousands of protesters doing anything from marching in the streets to blocking airports to raise awareness, to clashing with armed police officers, and it's been getting fucking a little rough, but they just recently, I think, had a victory where it was announced that the extradition bill was officially taken off the table. So I think that's a kudos. But again, I'm not part of that protest. I wish I could talk to somebody that was, but I think that's a I think that would be looked at as a victory. Don't quote me on it though. There's another protest happening that happened a little bit ago in Jakarta, Indonesia. It was like thousands of protesters clashed with police over a criminal code that was just announced, and the code would have outlawed sex outside of marriage and given a sentence of 6 months for unmarried couples living together. That shit seems fucking cray. Not into that shit. There was one of the biggest protests in the country, I believe. It was actually the largest protest since 1998. Yeah, I hope that gets sorted out. Moving on. In the Netherlands, little less. I mean, maybe not. I can't say that. In the Netherlands, thousands of Dutch farmers have been protesting. They first jammed up a highway or a big. Yeah, Dutch highway was first jammed with thousands of farmers driving their tractors to the Hague on October 1st. They are protesting claims from members of Dutch Parliament that agriculture was responsible for high emissions. Oh my gosh. So, there's that. Several protests are ongoing in France. There's been this Yellow Jacket protest. Look it up. It's been going on for almost a year. It's been probably going on the longest. There's also, let's see, Peruvians are there's a protest going on in Peru. It's a mining protest. Shit! Shoutouts to Yellow Teeth. Shoutouts to Evil L. Shoutouts to anybody listening. Shoutouts to Uncaged, my younger brother Bugatron. Shoutouts to Mooner6. Shoutouts to Castle Roll, my fellow Old Heart Radio co-host. Shoutouts to, like I said, anybody listening. If you're out there, do your thing. Chicken wing. There's mining protests going on in Peru. A protest in Haiti has just called for the resignation of their president. The Lebanese people are protesting. There's the Kurdish people in Syria. I don't know if this counts as a protest. I mean, they're formally protesting, I suppose, the removal of American troops, which was a decision by the president, not the troops. One of the biggest things I hate to hear is people shitting on the individuals in the armed forces. A lot of times you have to remember that it is people following orders, and you say, in good conscience you wouldn't do certain things, but you don't fucking know the environments, and I just gotta say that as a reminder. You don't know those positions, you don't know where you'd be if you were in those shoes, and that's one of those biggest things you always have to remind yourself, man. Like that's like I like all these, like, same thing with all these protests. Like some of them, like that Dutch farm one, seems a little You're protesting being accused of carbon emissions. It's probably true though, but it's not. I'm not in those shoes. Like, it's not my livelihood being attacked. It's not my way of life being attacked. Same thing with just like these protests in Hong Kong, the protests in Indonesia. Like, it's not my way of life being attacked. It could be. That's what I have to think. Like, it could be my way of life being attacked. There's things happening in the United States, and this is one of the reasons why I want to talk about protests, because in the US, like, there's tons of fucking things under attack right now. There are people under attack right now for living how they best can live. And that shit's bullshit. And you know what's happening? It seems like you very rarely hear of protests. We just had the global protest, climate protest, that just went down. That's awesome. But what the fuck ever happened to people getting fired up about the transgender ban in the military? Why? I don't know. There's just, it's a mix. It's a mix, and that's kind of the thing. And that's why it's important to realize that this is a tool. Protesting is a tool that, as a citizen of anywhere, as a person invested in anything, you have the right to raise your voice and fight for a fucking cause, man. It's like it falls in line with being a voter in a democracy. If you don't, shame, don't complain. Shame, don't complain. They're expecting protests to happen in Iraq over the prime minister lately. There's been tons, like I said, there's protests in Chile. just across the world. And I wish I had time to talk more about all of them individually, but I do not, because this is a 13-minute podcast. So I'm going to talk about something else real quick. I just want to acknowledge the protests across the globe. I want you to, as a listener, encourage you to go, just Google protests across the globe. I found a nice list on this Business Insider article. So, it's easy to find if you want the information. But me and Castle Roll, me and Lucas on Matinee, the most recent Matinee edition, we joked about not seeing Joker yet. And, it's shame on us, but I wanted to bring up that there have been reports of Joker face paint popping up in protests around the world. So far, they've been seen in Chile, in Lebanon, in Hong Kong, and in Iraq. And you know what's chilling about that? I found this really interesting article on France24.com. And it's what's chilling about that is that in the same way that people watched V for Vendetta and then started using Guy Fawkes masks, they're afraid that people are gonna start watching the Joker and using Joker face paint. And that shit is happening, people. What's scary about that is the Joker represents a little more extreme of a viewpoint than, say, the Guy Fawkes mask. But I don't think people are really going all joke. They're not going full Joker with it. It's a visual representation to people that shit ain't right. And that's one of the things that, weirdly enough, I haven't seen the movie, but weirdly enough, it seems like that movie points a big fucking arrow at, and they're trying to distance themselves from that idea. They don't want to be like the company that made the movie that sparked protests globally. But maybe they are. Maybe Joaquin Phoenix's performance finally convinced people that shit ain't fucking right. When there's protests going on across the globe, when there's forests being burnt down, when there's a planet on fucking fire, when our countries cannot get along and our leaders are blowing up in office, shit ain't right. And that's why it's important to remember that we can use our voice as best as we can, people. So go out there and just use your fucking brains for good. That's all I ever ask of any of you listeners. Just use your brains for good. Alright? Because that's the best thing you can do. You can ripen up your coconut every day. You can fucking listen to Coffee and Contemplation if you goddamn want. But the best thing you can do is use your brain for good. Don't fucking waste that shit. Don't let other people tell you how to use that shit. Don't let other people tell you how to fucking use your voice. Alright? Remember, protest and vote when needed. You're all fucking awesome. This has been Coffee and Contemplation. Keep your stick on the ice.